North Star Cultural Holdings' emergency demand arrived not as a threat shouted across the boardroom, but as 12 pages of polished legal language that did something far more dangerous. It made theft sound inevitable. Elise Hart spread the document across the walnut table with two gloved fingers, not because paper was evidence yet, but because she treated every ugly thing more carefully than the people who created it. Clara Wexford stood at the head of the table, white suit still perfect under the boardroom lights, though Ethan could see the exhaustion beginning to show at the corners of her eyes. Beatrice Lang sat rigidly, one hand near her pearls. Oliver Banks had been moved to a side chair with counsel on speaker. Edmund Vale remained by the window, too composed now, which Ethan disliked more than anger. Anger made people human. Composure after exposure usually meant a second plan had already begun. The gallery below continued without the Aurelian, applause rising faintly through the floor whenever another lot sold, but everyone in the boardroom knew the real auction had moved upstairs. It was no longer diamonds against dollars. It was truth against contract. Elise read the first page silently, then said, North Star claims contractual inspection and delivery rights under a side agreement tied to the guarantee vehicle. They allege Wexford and Vale's public postponement of Lot 1 constitutes anticipatory breach. They demand immediate access to the necklace, all handling records, and the legacy continuity file. Clara's jaw tightened. They filed within minutes. Ethan looked at Edmund, because they knew the language before the event. Edmund's mouth curved faintly. Or because sophisticated parties prepare for foreseeable disruptions. Yes, Ethan said. That is what I just said with fewer cufflinks. Beatrice snapped, Mr. Cole, this is not the time. Ethan turned to her calmly. It is exactly the time. North Star is not trying to win possession later. They are trying to force access now, while the record is unsettled and before independent counsel builds a clean wall around the necklace. If they get inside the room first, they can argue chain of custody, inspection rights, condition dispute, lender protection, buyer reliance, whatever phrase lets them touch the object before the truth does. Elise looked up from the document. That is correct. Clara folded her arms. Can we deny access? Elise's answer was precise. We can deny immediate physical access on preservation and condition grounds. We need court backing fast if the side agreement is enforceable. The problem is the agreement references an independent risk authentication certificate. Ethan heard the phrase and felt something inside him go still. Not fear yet. Recognition before fear. Say that again. Elise looked at him. Independent risk authentication certificate. Attached as Exhibit C. She turned to the scanned exhibit. The document opened on the boardroom screen. A formal certificate dated 8 years earlier, tied to the Marceline Sapphire settlement, the Aurelian continuity pool, and legacy collateral suitability. Most of the text was dense, blurred by bad scanning and worse intention, but the signature at the bottom was clear enough that the boardroom seemed to lose oxygen. Ethan Cole. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Edmund did not smile. He did not need to. The signature did the work for him. Clara turned slowly toward Ethan. Is that your signature? Ethan stared at the screen. The shape was close. Too close for a casual forgery. The E leaned slightly forward. The C looped open. The final stroke faded exactly the way his pen strokes faded when he wrote too quickly. A man could know his own name and still feel it used against him like a stranger's hand. He took one breath to name the room. Boardroom, forged certificate, North Star demand. Daughter safe for now, Grace's letter open. One breath to name the fear. They did not only bury my name, they kept using it. One breath to choose the next sentence. No, he said. Edmund's eyes narrowed. Beatrice exhaled. Oliver whispered something unheard. Clara studied Ethan's face, not the signature. You're sure? Ethan turned to her. If I had signed a certificate linking Marceline to Aurelian collateral, Edmund would not have needed to bury me. He would have owned me. Elise nodded slightly. That is a useful answer. Edmund finally spoke. Or a convenient one. Ethan looked at him. Say the room, Edmund. This is a boardroom becoming a theater. No. This is a room where North Star just produced my name on a certificate I never signed, attached to a side agreement designed to force delivery of a necklace containing evidence from the scandal you used to destroy me. That is the room. Try again. Edmund's courtesy thinned. You always believed naming something gave you power over it. No. Naming something stops powerful people from moving it in the dark. Clara's assistant, standing near the side table, looked pale. Miss Wexford, North Star's counsel is asking for a response within 15 minutes. Elise said, They do not get to set our clock. Ethan said, Actually, they do. Elise turned to him. He continued, Not legally, strategically. Their demand is built around urgency because urgency creates mistakes. If we ignore the clock, they move to the next pressure point. If we accept the clock, we let them define the room. Third choice, answer before 15 minutes with something they were not prepared to receive. Clara leaned forward. What? A structured invitation. Edmund laughed softly. To the people attempting to take the necklace? Ethan nodded. Exactly. Beatrice looked horrified. Absolutely not. Elise did not dismiss it. Explain. Ethan pointed at the screen. North Star wants access because they expected Wexford to panic, hide, or negotiate privately. They expected Clara to protect the sale, Edmund to control the legacy file, and me to either run to Lily or defend my reputation emotionally. So we give them a door, but not the one they asked for. Invite North Star, Solstice, insurers, independent counsel, and a neutral conditions specialist to a documented conference in this building under preservation protocol. No one touches the necklace, no private rooms, all statements on record. They can assert rights in daylight. Clara's eyes sharpened. You want to make them show their face. I want to make them choose between claiming rights and explaining the forged certificate. Elise tapped the document. If they refuse, then their urgency looks less like protection and more like extraction. Beatrice's expression shifted, unwillingly impressed. Edmund said, And if they accept? Ethan looked at him. Then we get a better look at who thought my signature would still scare me. The room held that sentence. For 8 years, the old settlement had worked because Ethan had been a father with too much to lose. Now the same fact was supposed to break him again. But Lily was safe in an interior office with Mrs. Donnelly, police nearby, colored pencils on a desk, and the rule still intact. Do not let them borrow your name. Ethan's phone buzzed. He checked it immediately. Mrs. Donnelly, Lily is drawing a necklace with a lock on it and says the diamonds need better adults. Ethan almost smiled. He typed back, Tell her she is correct. Then he placed the phone face down again. Clara saw the tiny shift in his expression. She's okay? Yes. Good. Edmund's eyes moved between them. That was a mistake. Ethan noticed. Clara noticed Ethan noticing. A negotiation could change because of one glance. Clara turned to Elise. Send the structured invitation. Elise was already drafting. I will phrase it as preservation conference under independent counsel supervision. No waiver of rights. No physical inspection pending protocol. Demand for North Star to produce the original certificate and authority documents. And notice that Wexford disputes immediate access. Add, Ethan said, that Ethan Cole will attend. Elise looked up. Are you sure? Edmund said. He cannot. Ethan ignored him. If my name is the key they used, I want to see who reaches for the lock. Clara looked at him for a long second. That puts you at risk. My name is already on their paper. Risk arrived before I did. Beatrice asked, And your daughter? Ethan's face hardened, not at the question but at the truth beneath it. My daughter is why I stay in the room. Running from men who use children as pressure only teaches them the method still works. No one answered that. Elise sent the invitation at 4:40, 2 p.m. At 4:49, North Star accepted. That was too fast. Ethan said so. Elise agreed. Clara's assistant confirmed the representative would arrive in person within 20 minutes. That was also too fast. They were nearby, Dana Rhodes said from the doorway, reading from her security tablet. A vehicle registered to a private legal service has been parked 2 blocks away since 1:05 p.m. Clara looked at Edmund. Before the postponement, Edmund's face remained smooth. Many parties monitor major sales closely. Ethan said, Some monitor from 2 blocks away with emergency demands already drafted. Dana continued, Police liaison confirmed the man near Lily's school, left in a black sedan. Plate obscured in the first camera, clearer in the second. Vehicle registered to a contractor used by Armitage Risk. Elise looked up sharply. Armitage Risk works with private family offices and disputed asset recovery. Ethan looked at Edmund. And North Star? Elise typed quickly. North Star's registered agent shares an address with an Armitage subsidiary. Clara's voice went cold. So the same network pushing for the necklace reached Ethan's daughter's school. Edmund said, "Correlation is not proof." Ethan looked at him. "No, it is a hallway. We are walking it." Edmund's phone vibrated on the table. He did not touch it. Dana noticed. "Mr. Vale, preservation hold includes communications received during the hold period." Edmund looked at Clara, offended. "Your security chief is now instructing me." Dana replied, "No, sir. The preservation notice is." Ethan almost liked her more. Edmund pushed the phone across the table without unlocking it. Document receipt. Do not review privileged content. Dana photographed the lock screen. The caller ID showed no name, only an encrypted number. The timing mattered. Everything mattered now. At 5:03, Clara stepped out to address the gallery again. Ethan watched from the boardroom monitor. She stood at the rostrum beneath lights built to flatter jewels and punish faces. "Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your patience regarding Lot 1. Wexford and Vale will not offer the Aurelian necklace this evening. We have invited relevant parties to a documented preservation conference to ensure that condition, documentation, and ownership interests are addressed with full integrity. The remaining sale continues." A murmur swelled, stronger this time. A man in the front row stood and left. Two advisors whispered furiously into phones. Online comments flooded the live stream faster than staff could moderate. Clara did not apologize. Ethan respected that. Apologies could become evidence of guilt when offered to people who wanted leverage more than clarity. She returned upstairs to find Julian Armand from Solstice waiting in the corridor with a woman Ethan did not know and a man he knew immediately. The man was older now, heavier around the jaw, with a silver cane and the same soft, watchmaker hands Ethan remembered from one of the worst rooms of his life. "Gerald Voss. You brought him here?" Clara asked Julian. Julian Armand smiled with diplomatic regret. "Mr. Voss has relevant technical knowledge." Priya, seeing him through the conference screen, went rigid. Ethan stepped into the corridor before anyone else could frame the moment. "Gerald." Voss looked at him, and all his old swagger faltered around the edges. "Cole, you look alive for someone who told me to stay dead," Voss grimaced. "Bad joke." "No, bad instinct." Julian's eyes moved between them. "Mr. Cole, I represent Solstice Guarantee Partners. North Star's counsel will arrive shortly. We are all interested in avoiding unnecessary escalation." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then you should have arrived before the forged certificate." The woman beside Julian spoke. "There is no established forgery. My name is Marianne Frost, counsel for North Star Cultural Holdings. We accepted your preservation conference invitation in good faith." Elise Hart stepped out behind Clara. Good faith enters through the boardroom and signs the attendance log. Marianne's smile did not reach her eyes. "Of course." They entered the boardroom at 5:11. Dana Rhodes arranged seating so no one sat with their back to the door, no one stood near the documents, and everyone had water they were too tense to drink. Priya remained on secure video. Beatrice and the board observed from one side. Edmund sat near his counsel, who had finally arrived looking deeply unhappy to discover the old polite war had become a recorded one. Ethan sat opposite Marianne Frost, not because he wanted to be central, but because North Star had used his signature as a bridge and he intended to make them cross it in public. Elise opened the conference. "This is a preservation and rights conference concerning Lot 1, the Aurelian Diamond Necklace. Postponed pending enhanced conservation and documentation review. No party waives rights. No party will physically inspect or handle the necklace absent agreed protocol or order. We will address North Star's demand, Solstice's guarantee position, and the disputed authentication certificate bearing Mr. Cole's signature." Marianne folded her hands. "North Star's position is straightforward. Wexford and Vale agreed that if Lot 1 was withdrawn for reasons other than force majeure or verified title defect, North Star, as designated fallback purchaser under the guarantee side agreement, has rights to acquire the lot at the guaranteed reserve, subject to inspection. The authentication certificate confirms legacy risk was evaluated. Ethan tilted his head. Fallback purchaser. Yes. Not bidder. Marianne paused. Contractual purchaser in defined circumstances. Clara looked furious. So if I withdrew the necklace, North Star could take it privately, Julian said smoothly. A standard downside protection mechanism. Ethan looked at him. Standard mechanisms are usually disclosed to the CEO. Julian glanced at Clara. Governance questions are internal, Clara said. Not anymore. Elise turned to Marianne. Produce the original certificate. Marianne slid a folder across the table. Dana stopped it halfway, photographed it, logged it, and passed it to Elise. Elise opened it carefully. The certificate inside was not a copy. It was ink on heavy paper, signed Ethan Cole in black. Ethan did not touch it. He leaned forward and looked. The room waited. He felt, absurdly, the memory of the pen he had used 8 years ago during the settlement. Dark blue ink, Grace beside him, Edmund across the table, a clause about silence, a hospital bill in his pocket, Lily asleep against Grace's shoulder. This signature was black, close in shape, wrong in speed. It's not mine, he said. Marianne replied. We expected that response. Ethan looked at her. Did you expect the reason? She did not answer. He pointed without touching. The E is copied from my settlement signature, but whoever traced it didn't understand that I break pressure after the vertical line when I'm signing under stress. Here the pressure continues through the lower curve because the forger was drawing, not signing. The C is too careful. I never close the final exit stroke when writing on heavy paper because the nib drags. This one closes. Also, I signed Marceline documents in blue. Gerald Voss whispered, Damn. Marianne's face hardened. Handwriting analysis requires an expert. Ethan nodded. Good. Bring one. Until then, stop calling it authentication. Elise looked to Dana. Log Mr. Cole's statement. We will retain an independent forensic examiner. Clara leaned toward Marianne. Who supplied this certificate to North Star? Marianne's eyes moved to Julian for half a second. Julian answered. The certificate was included in the collateral diligence package maintained by Legacy Counsel. Clara turned to Edmund. Edmund said, The document existed in the file. Ethan said, Not the question. Clara repeated, slower, sharper. Who supplied it? Edmund folded his hands. My office transmitted the file as part of trust obligations. Your office created the file? Maintained. Created? The original compilation predates my current administrative role. Ethan almost smiled. That means yes, but with a dead man in front. Edmund's counsel whispered in his ear urgently. Edmund ignored him. Henry Wexford approved the continuity structure. Clara's voice broke slightly on her father's name, then steadied. Did he approve forging Ethan Cole's signature? Do not be naive, Edmund said, and the boardroom stilled. The words came out too sharp, too honest, too old. Edmund realized it and tried to recover. I mean, do not be naive about relying on Mr. Cole's interpretation. Ethan leaned back. No. Let the first sentence stand. It was better. Elise said, Mr. Vale, are you asserting Henry Wexford authorized creation of this certificate? Edmund's counsel finally interrupted. My client will not answer that without privilege review. Ethan nodded. Privilege is becoming crowded today. Priya spoke from the screen. I have a technical question for Mr. Voss. Gerald shifted. For me? You installed the clasp tongue insert? Yes. Did the insert come with the transfer mark already present? Gerald swallowed. Yes. Did you ask about it? No. Why not? Gerald looked at Edmund, then at Julian, then at Ethan. Because when Legacy Counsel brings you a part and says it belongs, you don't ask whether the ghost signed the guest book. Priya's disgust was visible. You endangered the necklace. Gerald's face flushed. I stabilized a clasp under instruction. Ethan said, You also called Oliver after the statement because someone threatened you. Who? Gerald rubbed his mouth. I don't know. Elise slid a printed copy of the message Gerald had forwarded onto the table. The message said, If Cole sees the mark, the guarantee dies, and so do we. Who is we? Gerald stared at it. The people paid out of the continuity pool. Beatrice whispered. Paid out how? Gerald looked miserable now. Old settlements, quiet repairs, storage, off-book consulting. People who knew pieces had problems but kept them saleable. Not always fraud. Sometimes documentation gaps. Sometimes family politics. Sometimes stolen things returned quietly. The pool paid for silence that looked like maintenance. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. There it was. Not one necklace. Not one sapphire. An economy of quiet. Clara looked as if she might be sick. My father funded this? Gerald did not answer. Edmund did. Your father protected the house. Clara turned on him. From truth? From collapse? Ethan's voice cut softly through them. Collapse is not always the enemy. Sometimes it is the building admitting it was never safe. Marianne Frost gathered her papers. North Star will not sit here while Wexford stages emotional theater around ordinary market confidentiality. Elise said. North Star will sit here if it wants to maintain its good faith posture. We have a disputed certificate, evidence of undocumented component transfer, a compromised handling chain, and a potential intimidation event connected to Mr. Cole's minor child through an Armitage-linked vehicle sharing address with your registered agent. Leaving now would be a sentence too. Marianne's eyes narrowed. Careful. Ethan almost laughed. That word again. It must come in the gift bag. Julian Armand leaned forward. Let us be practical. The necklace can be placed in neutral escrow pending review. North Star's rights preserved. Wexford's condition concerns preserved. Solstice's guarantee rights preserved. No one loses tonight. Ethan turned to Clara. That is the offer. Clara frowned. Escrow sounds reasonable. That is why it is dangerous. Julian looked offended. Neutral escrow is standard. Ethan said. Name the escrow agent. Julian smiled slightly. Armitage, secure assets. Dana Rhodes looked up sharply. Elise said. Absolutely not. Ethan nodded. There. Clara understood. The same network connected to Lily's school, Julian said. Unproven. Ethan looked at him. Then offer another escrow agent. Julian paused one beat too long. Marianne said, North Star has pre-cleared Armitage under the contract. Ethan looked at Clara. The contract was built to move the necklace through their door no matter which disaster happened. Successful auction. North Star proxy wins or controls buyer. Withdrawn lot. Fallback purchaser rights. Condition dispute. Escrow with Armitage. Guarantee default. Solstice inspection. Every hallway leads away from Wexford and toward them. Elise's eyes sharpened. A closed-loop extraction mechanism. Beatrice whispered. My God. Edmund said. This is fantasy. Ethan turned to him. Then open the legacy file. Edmund's mouth closed. Clara stood. Open it. Edmund's counsel objected. Elise overrode with process. Beatrice demanded board authority. Dana preserved objections. The room became noise for 30 seconds, but Ethan did not listen to the loudest voice. He watched Marianne and Julian. They did not look worried about the legacy file. They looked worried about timing. That meant the file was not enough. Something else was moving while they argued. Ethan turned to Clara's assistant. How long until Lot 1 could physically leave the building if someone had a court order or contract release? The assistant blinked. It is under seal. If seal is challenged, Dana answered. With cooperation from internal security, 15 minutes. Without, impossible tonight. Ethan looked at her. Internal security before you? Dana's expression hardened. There are legacy guards on private contract for high-value objects. They predate my role. Clara stared. My father's guards? Edmund said. Specialized asset protection. Ethan looked at Dana. Where are they? Dana checked her tablet and went still. 2 are outside Gallery 1. Clara's face flushed with anger. I ordered Wexford Security to seal Gallery 1. Dana said, they are listed as trust security, not house security. Elise stood. Remove them. Edmund said, you have no authority over trust security protecting trust collateral. Ethan said, there's the move. Clara turned. What move? Ethan pointed toward the monitor, showing Gallery 1. 2 men in dark suits stood near the sealed corridor. not threatening, not moving, simply present where they should not be. While North Star keeps us talking about contract rights, trust security positions near the object, next comes an order, a claimed default, an escrow demand, or a safety concern. Someone says the necklace must be moved for protection. The guards are already in place to make the wrong action look routine. Dana was already speaking into her radio. House security to Gallery 1. No one enters. No one moves the seal. Trust personnel are not recognized for object movement without CEO and independent counsel approval. On the monitor, the corridor changed. Wexford security approached. The two trust guards did not move. Clara's phone rang. The caller ID read, Henry Wexford Trust Office. Edmund did not look at the phone, which meant he had expected it. Clara answered on speaker. A woman's voice spoke with crisp authority. Miss Wexford, this is Lydia Crane, Trust Operations. We have received notice of material adverse condition affecting trust collateral. Under the continuity agreements, Trust Security will secure Lot 1 for transfer to approved escrow pending review. Clara said, Denied. Lydia continued as if Clara had not spoken. Refusal may trigger default remedies. Ethan leaned toward the phone. Lydia, this is Ethan Cole. Who signed the transfer authorization? Silence. Then, Mr. Cole has no standing. True, but signatures do. Who signed? Lydia said. Authorization derives from legacy counsel and trust protocols. Ethan smiled faintly. That means Edmund gave instruction without wanting his name first in the sentence. Try again. Edmund's face darkened. Lydia said, We are acting under Henry Wexford Trust Authority. Clara said, Henry Wexford is dead. Lydia replied, His instruments are not. The line went dead. On the monitor, one of the trust guards reached toward the sealed gallery door. Wexford security blocked him. No violence, no drama, just hands held out, radios raised, authority colliding in a corridor over a necklace that suddenly looked less like a jewel than a witness in protective custody. Clara whispered, They are trying to take it now. Ethan nodded. Because the forged certificate is not their strongest paper. It is their dirtiest. Their strongest paper is the trust instrument. Elise turned to Beatrice. Board Emergency Authority. Now. Beatrice did not hesitate this time. Granted. Martin and the other board members nodded. Clara said, Dana, remove trust security from Wexford, controlled areas. If they refuse, call police for trespass. The necklace remains sealed. Priya, remain with the piece by video only. Do not enter the gallery. No one becomes a hero in a hallway. Ethan looked at her. She had borrowed his method and improved it. Good. On the monitor, Wexford security formed a quiet wall. The trust guards stepped back, speaking into hidden earpieces. Julian Armand stood abruptly. Solstice cannot remain in a room where collateral rights are being actively impaired. Elise said, Sit down or leave under documented refusal. Marianne Frost said, North Star reserves all rights. Ethan replied, Rights are very popular tonight. Responsibilities seem lonely. Then his phone rang. Mrs. Donnelly. He answered immediately. Lily? Safe? Mrs. Donnelly said. But listen, the school just got another call. Different person. They didn't ask to pick her up this time. They asked whether Lily had any allergies for an event form. Ethan's blood went cold. Event form? Principal Harris refused. Police traced the call to a blocked office line. Lily is still away from windows. She is drawing something for you. Ethan closed his eyes. The pressure was changing. When the first attempt failed, they moved from physical pickup to information gathering. Allergies, forms, emergency contacts, small facts that could build larger lies. Tell Principal Harris no information leaves the room. None. If anyone calls, they speak only to police. Already done. Ethan, she asked me whether this is because of the shiny necklace. He swallowed. What did you say? I said grown-ups made a paperwork mess and her father is very good at paperwork messes. A sound almost escaped him, half laugh, half break. Thank you. Come home with your name, Ethan. But come home. He ended the call and looked at the room. Edmund watched him with infuriating calm. Another event? Clara asked softly. Ethan nodded. They asked for Lily's allergy information. Clara's face hardened. That is beyond leverage. No, Ethan said. That is leverage becoming paperwork. He turned to Elise. Add child. Related information requests to preservation and police coordination. Armitage, North Star, Solstice, Trust Office, Legacy Council, all contractors. Elise was already writing. Edmund said, "You are dragging a child into a commercial dispute." Ethan moved so quickly the room inhaled, but he did not touch Edmund. He simply stepped close enough that the older man had to look up. "No. You dragged her to the edge of it because you thought I would bargain against myself. That was your mistake." Edmund's voice was low. "And what will you do instead?" Ethan looked around the room. Clara, pale but standing. Priya on screen beside the sealed necklace. Beatrice shaken but no longer hiding. Elise making a record. Dana holding the corridor. Oliver small in his chair. Gerald Voss sweating under old guilt. Marianne and Julian recalculating. And Edmund Vale, the man who had turned silence into architecture. "I will make the room bigger," Ethan said. Edmund frowned. "What?" Ethan turned to Elise. "We notify the Attorney General's Art Fraud Unit, the Insurer's Special Investigation Unit, and the court. Not tomorrow. Now, we seek an emergency preservation order over the necklace, the trust instrument, the guarantee file, North Star demand, Solstice communications, Armitage contacts, and all child-related outreach. We put Lily's information under protective seal. We do not negotiate private delivery. We do not use trust escrow. We do not let them choose the hallway." Elise looked at Clara. Clara's answer came without hesitation. "Do it," Beatrice whispered. "That could destroy the house." Clara looked at the monitor where Gallery 1 stood sealed and empty. "Then we find out whether there is a house beneath the marble." Edmund's face changed. Not much, but enough. For the first time, his eyes showed not annoyance, not contempt, but calculation under pressure. He had expected Clara to delay, expected the board to fear collapse, expected Ethan to run to Lily, expected everyone to choose smaller rooms. They had not. At 5:50, 7 p.m., Elise sent emergency notices. At 6:04, the insurer acknowledged. At 6:09, the Art Fraud Unit requested preliminary evidence. At 6:14, a judge's clerk confirmed availability for an emergency preservation conference. At 7:00, at 6:20, Wexford's remaining auction lots continued below with uneven results and a room full of whispers. At 6:27, North Star withdrew its immediate demand, without prejudice, which meant they had not surrendered. They had repositioned. Ethan knew better than to celebrate. Men who built traps rarely relied on one trigger. At 6:31, Dana Rhodes received confirmation that the trust guards had left the building. At 6:33, Priya reported the necklace remained sealed and stable. At 6:36, Clara's assistant entered the boardroom holding a small evidence pouch. "This was found in Legacy storage intake," she said. "It was logged this morning under Mr. Vale's office, but the timestamp says it was deposited before the building opened." Dana took it, photographed it, and placed it under the document camera. Inside was an old auction paddle, cream-colored, cracked at the handle, marked with a number from the Marceline sale 8 years ago. Ethan knew it immediately because its twin sat in his briefcase. Beneath it was a folded condition report page with a signature line. His name appeared again, Ethan Cole. But this time, beneath the forged signature, someone had written in Grace's blue ink. He refused to sign this. Clara looked at Ethan. Ethan could not breathe for 1 second. Grace had not only left him a letter, she had left a counter record. Edmund whispered, "Impossible." Ethan looked at him. "That is the first honest word you've said all day." Dana turned the page carefully. On the back was a list of 4 objects. Marceline sapphire, Aurelian Diamond Necklace, Vesper Pearl Tiara, St. Orlov Emerald Cross. Beside each was the same notation, continuity collateral. Beatrice covered her mouth. Clara whispered, "There are more." Ethan stared at the list, then at Grace's handwriting, then at Edmund Vale's face. The signature that destroyed him had not been forged once. It had been turned into a tool, a reusable key, A dead man's credential attached to priceless objects so old fraud could keep borrowing new beauty. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time the message said, Grace kept copies in the place Henry never searched. Ask Clara about the nursery vault. Ethan looked up slowly. Clara had gone white. The nursery vault, he said. Clara gripped the back of a chair. No one outside my family knows about that. Edmund closed his eyes for the briefest moment. There it was. The next room. And somewhere inside Wexford and Vale, hidden beneath a name meant for children, Grace's copies were waiting. Clara Wexford looked at Ethan Cole as if he had just spoken the name of a room she had spent her life pretending was only childhood memory, and for one fragile second the CEO, the auctioneer, the daughter of Henry Wexford, the woman holding together a collapsing sale and a collapsing legacy, disappeared behind the face of a little girl who had once been told not to ask why certain doors in her father's house had no handles. The nursery vault, she whispered, and the boardroom seemed to lean toward her. Ethan did not move. He had learned in negotiation that when a person repeated a hidden phrase in that voice, you did not rush them. You let the phrase finish opening what it had unlocked. Elise Hart stood beside the table with her pen suspended over her notes. Dana Rhodes looked from Clara to Edmund Vale, measuring the silence like a security perimeter. Beatrice Lang's face had gone pale with the special horror of realizing she had chaired a board over rooms she had never been allowed to see. Edmund Vale recovered first, because men like Edmund survived by turning shock into procedure. This is absurd, he said. The nursery vault is a private family storage space. It has no relevance to Lot 1, the trust instruments, or the North Star demand. Ethan looked at him. Then you should enjoy watching it become irrelevant on camera. Edmund's eyes hardened. You have no authority to access it. Clara's voice came quietly, but the quiet was new, not weak, decided. I do. Edmund turned to her. Clara, do not say my name like it belongs to my father. The room went still. She stood at the head of the table, one hand flat on the wood, the other curled so tightly at her side that her knuckles whitened. The nursery vault is inside Wexford property, below the private archive wing. My father told me it stored sentimental family pieces and retired exhibition material. I was allowed inside once when I was 11. He said every great house needs a place where unfinished things wait to become worthy. Her eyes moved to Ethan. I thought he meant jewels. Ethan thought of Grace's note, the place Henry never searched. Grace knew about it. Clara's face tightened. How? Ethan looked down at the blue ink note still lying beside the old Marceline paddle. Grace was not just my wife, Miss Wexford. Before she got sick, before Lily, before your father's lawyers taught us how expensive truth could be, she was the best provenance researcher I ever knew. She found stories inside shipping receipts, family letters, erased catalog numbers, even the way a woman changed her handwriting after marriage. Your father hired me to negotiate rooms. He hired Grace to find what those rooms were hiding. Clara looked wounded by the revelation, and maybe that was unfair, because no daughter could know every room in a father's life. But Ethan could not spare her from it. Not now. When the Marceline dispute began, he continued, Grace found inconsistencies in the repair chain. She found a reference time with restricted holding space called nursery. Your father told her it was old terminology for uncatalogued objects. She believed him until she didn't. Edmund said sharply, Your wife signed confidentiality acknowledgments as well. Ethan turned on him. My wife signed what she had to sign to keep our newborn insured after you made sure every door around us had a price. Edmund's mouth closed, not because he had no answer, but because Elise Hart was now writing every word. Clara looked toward Dana. Can we access the vault under preservation protocol? Elise answered first. Not alone. Not casually. We need emergency authority or at least documented consent from the property controller, house counsel, independent counsel, and security. If the vault contains trust materials, Edmund will object. Let him. We record the objection. We do not touch anything without logging it. Edmund's voice became cold. I object now, Dana said. Documented. Ethan almost smiled. Edmund hated Dana's profession of calm more than he hated Ethan's questions. Clara said, The vault is under my access as CEO and family property controller, until you produce a document saying otherwise. Edmund stepped closer. You are making a family matter public. Clara looked at him. No, my father made public trust depend on private rot. I am done protecting the smell. Beatrice whispered. Clara, the judge's emergency conference is in less than 30 minutes. Then we preserve the vault before it disappears. Ethan shook his head. No. Clara turned, startled. No? Not preserve before court. Preserve for court. He pointed toward the boardroom clock. If we rush down there now, Edmund argues we contaminated a family archive. North Star argues Wexford manufactured a record to escape delivery. Solstice argues spoliation. You need the judge to hear that an unknown source identified the nursery vault after Grace's counter-record surfaced, that Edmund reacted, that Grace's letter referenced hidden copies, and that the vault may contain documents related to collateralized objects. Then you ask for emergency sealed preservation, supervised access, and no removal. Make the room bigger before opening the door. Clara stared at him for a moment, then nodded once. You are right. Edmund's expression thinned. How convenient that Mr. Cole always defines the room in which Mr. Cole becomes necessary, Ethan said. No, Edmund, you made me necessary when you kept forging my name after you buried it. The emergency conference began at exactly 7:00 p.m. in the same boardroom because Elise insisted that moving everyone to a courthouse would give North Star and the trust office too many minutes alone with too many doors. Judge Malcolm Reeve appeared on a secure video screen with the expression of a man who had been pulled from dinner and had decided to punish everyone by being more awake than they were. The insurer's counsel joined from a car. The Attorney General's art fraud liaison joined from an office with fluorescent lights and no patients. North Star appeared through Marianne Frost, Solstice through Julian Armand, the Henry Wexford Trust through Edmund's newly arrived counsel, Wexford through Elise and Clara, Conservation through Priya, Security through Dana, and Ethan Cole through no one but himself, which Edmund objected to within 30 seconds. Judge Reeve listened, then said, Mr. Cole appears as a fact witness and disputed signatory, not counsel. If anyone dislikes that, they may file something with footnotes later. Ethan decided he might like Judge Reeve. Elise presented the sequence without adjectives. Lot 1 postponed for condition review. Undocumented component found. Marceline transfer mark identified. Disputed certificate bearing Ethan's signature. North Star fallback demand. Solstice guarantee pressure. Armitage, linked child information attempts. Grace Cole's counter record. 4 continuity collateral objects, anonymous message, referencing nursery vault. Edmund's counsel called the message unreliable. Elise agreed. That is why we are asking to preserve, not to conclude. Judge Reeve looked at Clara through the screen. Miss Wexford, do you consent to supervised preservation of the nursery vault? Clara did not hesitate. Yes. Mr. Vale? Edmund's counsel said. We object on grounds of trust, privilege, family privacy, and risk of contamination. Judge Reeve adjusted his glasses. Privilege does not prevent preservation. Privacy does not protect evidence from existing. Contamination is solved by procedure. Objection noted. Marianne Frost said, North Star reserves rights and objects to any post-demand discovery expedition designed to frustrate delivery. Judge Reeve said, North Star may reserve all the rights it can carry. It will not touch the necklace tonight. Julian Armand said, Solstice requires assurance that collateral will not be impaired. Priya spoke before anyone else could. The collateral is already impaired if an undocumented component was inserted after final report. Judge Reeve looked at her. And you are? Priya Nair, senior conservator, the person everyone should have listened to yesterday. The judge stared at her for 1 second, then said, refreshing. Continue. Ethan saw Clara almost smile despite everything. Judge Reeve issued the preservation order at 7:18. The Aurelian necklace remained sealed. The nursery vault would be accessed only by Dana Rhodes, Priya Nair, or her designated deputy, Elise Hart, an insurer representative by video, a court-appointed digital archivist if available remotely, Clara as property controller, and Ethan as identifying witness for Grace's materials, with Edmund and counsel permitted to observe, but not touch. All items would be photographed in place, no object removed without further order except materials clearly marked by Grace Cole, or directly referencing Ethan Cole's disputed signature, Marceline, Aurelian, or continuity collateral, and even those would be bagged under seal. And one more thing, Judge Reeve added, looking directly at Edmund. No one contacts Mr. Cole's daughter, her school, her caregiver, or anyone connected to her. Any such contact after this order will be treated as evidence of bad faith before it is treated as anything clever. Ethan's throat tightened so suddenly he had to look down. Lily was safe. The judge had put it on the record. The room had grown large enough to include her protection without making her a spectacle. "Thank you," he said quietly. Judge Reeve looked at him. "Do not thank me yet, Mr. Cole. Find the paper first." At 7:31, they went down to the archive wing, not by the private elevator this time, but through an older staircase behind a paneled door Clara had not opened in years. The building changed as they descended. Marble gave way to old wood, warm gallery light became narrow yellow lamps, the air cooled and thickened with dust, cedar, and the faint metallic scent of locked things. Dana led, followed by Elise, Clara, Ethan, Edmund, and his counsel, Priya's deputy conservator, and 2 security staff with body cameras. Priya watched through a live tablet feed from conservation because she refused to leave the sealed necklace without eyes. Ethan carried Grace's letter in a transparent evidence sleeve now, not in his pocket. It felt wrong to have her words separated from him by plastic, but it also felt right that no one could pretend they had not existed. They reached a small corridor lined with framed children's portraits. Clara, as a girl holding a ribbon, a boy who must have been her brother if she had one, Henry Wexford, young and severe even at 12, and older Wexford children from generations past dressed like miniature adults under painted skies. At the end of the corridor stood a white door with brass hinges and a faded painted moon near the top. It looked less like a vault entrance than a forgotten nursery. That made it worse. Clara stopped in front of it, suddenly unable to reach for the keypad hidden behind the frame. Ethan said nothing. Elise said nothing. Edmund said, "This is unnecessary cruelty." Clara's hand moved then. "No," she said. "This is delayed adulthood." She entered a code. The panel blinked red, her face tightened. It was changed. Edmund looked away. Dana noticed. Ethan noticed. Elise said, "Mr. Vale?" Edmund's counsel began objecting. Dana raised a hand. "We have authority to request override from building security." Clara said, "Wait." She looked at the painted moon, then at the brass handle, then at the small carved border around the door. "My father loved riddles when they made him feel generous." She touched the moon, then the lower star beneath it, then a wooden bead in the frame that looked decorative until it clicked. The keypad slid aside, revealing an older mechanical lock beneath. Ethan felt the strange intimacy of watching a daughter remember how her father hid things behind play. Clara whispered, "He told me when I was 11 that grown-up doors only open if children remember the sky." Edmund's face had gone gray. Clara removed a thin chain from around her neck. Ethan had thought it held a pendant. It held a small old key. He said it was useless. She said, "A keepsake." She inserted it into the lock. The door opened. No one moved for a moment. Dana entered first, camera raised, calling out the room. "Nursery vault access, 7:39 p.m., all parties present, no items touched." The lights came on in slow rows. The room was not large, but it felt deep because every wall was lined with drawers, small cabinets, velvet-lined shelves, and archival boxes labeled in Henry Wexford's clean, arrogant handwriting. In the center sat an old child's table with 4 tiny chairs, repurposed as a sorting station. On one chair lay a faded stuffed elephant with one glass eye missing. Clara made a sound so soft Ethan almost missed it. "That was mine." Edmund said, "Clara, this is a private space." She did not look at him. "You made it a financial instrument." Dana photographed the room. Elise read labels aloud as the conservator documented: retired catalog plates, child portraits, broken miniatures, unmounted stones, legacy correspondence, restricted repairs, trust continuity, sentimental objects. Then Ethan saw it, not because the box was obvious, but because Grace had known him. The box was not marked Ethan. It was not marked Marceline. It sat on a lower shelf behind a row of empty velvet ring forms, wrapped with pale blue thread the color of Grace's ink. On the top, in her handwriting, was a single line. "For the day careful stops working." "Is that hers?" she whispered. Ethan nodded. Dana moved carefully, photographed the shelf, the thread, the position, the surrounding objects, then lifted the box into a clear evidence tray. Elise asked, "Mr. Cole, can you identify the handwriting?" Ethan's voice came out rough. "Grace Cole, my wife," Edmund whispered. "She had no access." Clara turned on him. "Then how did she put it here?" He did not answer. Dana cut the blue thread under camera. Inside were copies. Not originals, perhaps, but copies good enough to wake the dead. The Marceline condition report with Ethan's refusal note, photographs of the clasp assembly before and after substitution, internal memos from Henry Wexford to Edmund Vale, discussing continuity risk, a ledger page listing payments from the Aurelian continuity pool, a copy of the disputed certificate with Ethan's signature line blank, and another copy with the forged signature overlaid in tracing marks. Elise inhaled softly. Grace documented the forgery process. Ethan closed his eyes. Grace had not simply believed him. She had built the bridge back before she died, plank by plank, while he was too afraid to look for it. The conservator lifted another sleeve. Inside was a photograph of Henry Wexford, Edmund Vale, Gerald Voss, and an unknown man standing beside an open tray containing the Marceline clasp assembly. On the back, Grace had written, "Not destroyed, moved." HW called it continuity. EV called it survival. Ethan looked at Edmund. Edmund had stopped pretending boredom. His face had become old. Elise turned the next page. "There is a memo," she read aloud, voice steady but quieter. "Ethan Cole will not sign. Use prior settlement exemplar for internal risk certificate. He cannot challenge without exposing family vulnerabilities. Grace Cole suspects retention of Marceline component. Limit her access after archive review." Ethan's hand found the edge of the child's table. For a second, the room swam. He had imagined many kinds of betrayal over the years. He had not imagined seeing the sentence that converted his wife and daughter into strategy. Clara's face had gone white with horror. "My father wrote that?" Elise checked. "Initialed HW," Edmund said. "Copies can be manufactured." Ethan's laugh was low and broken. "You really have only one song." Dana photographed the memo. Elise placed it into evidence sleeve. The conservator found a second bundle, this one labeled Vesper, and a third labeled Orloff. Grace had copied each enough to show pattern, compromised components, continuity collateral, forged or pressured certificates, fallback purchaser structures, private repair pools, and trust-controlled exits. Not every object had Ethan's signature. Some had others. Names of retired specialists, dead appraisers, Mendium registrar, one museum registrar who had... Ethan saw then the full shape of the machine, not a single jewel used as collateral, but a dynasty of beauty propped up by altered parts and borrowed names. The Aurelian was only the piece currently under spotlight. The machine had survived because every scandal was treated separately, every expert isolated, every signature made to look like one person's failure. Grace had seen the pattern. Grace had hidden it in the one room Henry Wexford thought nobody serious would search because he had named it like a child. Clara sank slowly onto one of the tiny chairs, ignoring Elise's warning not to sit near evidence. She stopped before touching it, then stood again, ashamed of needing support from the room that had betrayed her. "I was 11, she said. No one asked what she meant. She looked at the shelves. "He let me play here while he met with Edmund in the archive. I thought the boxes were treasure." Ethan's anger softened for her against his will. Children rarely know they are playing inside systems they will one day inherit as guilt. Edmund's counsel whispered urgently to him, but Edmund raised a hand. "Henry carried burdens none of you understand." Clara turned. "Do not turn my father into a martyr because you helped him hide receipts." Edmund's eyes flashed. "Your father saved this house from collapse 3 times. He protected clients, families, museums, governments. Do you think truth is always clean? Do you think every restitution claim is simple?" Every component traceable? Every heir honest? Your father understood that the market would destroy itself if every imperfection became a public trial. Ethan said, so he made private trials and convicted whoever had the least power. Edmund looked at him with contempt. You were paid. Ethan stepped closer, his voice deadly quiet. I was cornered. You signed. You forged me after I refused. Edmund's face hardened. You refused to understand scale. Ethan held up Grace's memo. No. I understood a clasp. Grace understood the scale. The tablet in Dana's hand chimed. Priya's voice came through, tense. Dana, Gallery 1 seal alert. Everyone froze. Dana checked her security feed. What happened? Priya answered. Temperature alarm triggered in the display corridor. Fire suppression, pre-warning. If the system escalates, emergency protocol may require moving the necklace. Ethan turned toward Edmund. Edmund's face was unreadable again. Clara whispered, no. Dana spoke into her radio. Confirm actual fire. A voice replied through static. No visible smoke. Alarm reads thermal spike near Gallery 1 service panel. Ethan said, designed movement. Elise snapped. No one moves the necklace without court order. Dana was already walking toward the door. House security responding. Priya said, I am seeing 2 maintenance credentials entering the corridor. Clara's face hardened. Maintenance is locked out. Dana looked at the feed and swore under her breath. Legacy maintenance override. Edmund said nothing. Ethan looked at him. You couldn't stop us opening the nursery, so you triggered the hallway. Edmund's counsel said, do not answer. Ethan did not wait. Clara, who can cancel emergency movement protocol, security chief and CEO together. Do it now. Clara and Dana spoke over radio, codes exchanged, voices sharp but controlled. Priya remained on the tablet, watching the sealed necklace from the conservation feed. 1 maintenance worker at the panel, 2nd near the sealed door. Wexford security approaching. Ethan looked at the evidence box, then at Elise. North Star withdrew demand because they had another path. Elise nodded grimly. Emergency transfer for preservation. Through Armitage or Trust Security. Clara's radio crackled. Trust personnel are back at side entrance, claiming authority to secure collateral due to fire risk. Clara closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. Denied. Police now. Fire department through public entrance only. No trust movement. The nursery vault felt suddenly too far below the gallery. Ethan's body wanted to run toward the necklace, not because diamonds mattered more than evidence, but because men like Edmund understood objects better than people and would always try to save the jewel that saved the lie. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Donnelly. He answered immediately. Lily? Safe, she said. But she wants to talk. Lily came on, voice small but steady. Dad? I'm here, Mrs. Donnelly says you're still in the paperwork mess. Yes. Are you winning? Ethan looked at the opened nursery vault, Grace's copies, Clara's pale face, Edmund's silent calculation, and the alarm trying to force the Aurelian into movement. We found Mom's papers. Lily was quiet. Mom helped? His throat tightened. More than I knew. Then don't let them hurry you. He closed his eyes. Why do you say that? Because when I hurry, I tie my shoes wrong and fall. Mrs. Donnelly said faintly in the background, the child is not wrong. Ethan almost smiled despite the alarm. No, she isn't. Lily said, come home with your name. I will. And with Mom's too. That one nearly broke him. Yes, he whispered. With Mom's too. He ended the call and turned back to the room. They are using urgency because they are losing documents. Third choice. We do not chase the alarm. We freeze every exit. Dana looked at him, already sealing exits. Not only physical, digital. Clara, disable legacy override credentials building-wide. Elise, notify Judge Reeve the vault produced responsive documents, and an emergency alarm is attempting to trigger object movement. Priya, keep visual record but do not enter. Beatrice, board vote. Suspending trust operational access inside Wexford property pending court review. Now. Beatrice did not object. So moved. Martin seconded before Edmund could speak. The board members voted in the nursery vault corridor, surrounded by portraits of Wexford children and boxes of Wexford sins. Clara entered the CEO override. Dana entered the security override. Legacy credentials died across the building at 7:58 p.m. On Dana's tablet, the 2 maintenance badges turned red. Wexford security intercepted them without violence. Fire department arrived through the main entrance, confirmed no fire, only a localized heat device attached near the service panel. A device, not a malfunction. Small, deliberate, designed to trigger protocol without flames. Elise relayed everything to Judge Reeve. North Star denied involvement. Solstice denied involvement. Edmund denied knowledge before anyone asked, which Dana documented with visible satisfaction. By 8:12, the Aurelian remained sealed. By 8:19, the nursery vault evidence was bagged under court order. By 8:27, police entered the building, not for spectacle, but for preservation. Cameras outside finally caught up. Reporters gathered behind barricades, asking why the world's most important jewelry auction had police at the door and no necklace on the block. Clara stood in the nursery vault doorway, looking older than she had that morning. "This will ruin us," Beatrice whispered. Clara looked at Ethan. "Will it?" Ethan looked around the vault. "It will ruin what cannot survive records." Clara nodded slowly. "Then let it." Edmund laughed softly. It was a terrible sound. "You think records save people? Records are interpreted by power. They always have been." Ethan picked up Grace's sealed evidence sleeve and held it between them. "Not always." Edmund stepped close enough that Dana shifted. "What do you want, Ethan? Your name cleared? Money? An apology from a dead man? You think your daughter will be safer if you tear open every room? Men like me exist because people like Clara eventually need someone to make impossible things possible. You destroy me, another will come. You expose the pool, another pool forms. You save one necklace, 100 remain silent." Ethan listened until Edmund finished. Then he said, "That is the first argument guilty men make when they run out of innocence. The world is too dirty to clean." Edmund's eyes narrowed. "And your answer?" Ethan looked at Clara, at Elise, at Dana, at Grace's copies, at the names of specialists who had been used like spare parts, at the 4 objects listed as continuity collateral, and at the empty little chair where Clara's stuffed elephant had waited with one glass eye missing. "You don't clean the world," he said. "You clean the room you're standing in and stop letting dirty men choose the next one." For once, Edmund had no immediate reply. At 8:40, Judge Reeve expanded the order, the nursery vault sealed, all continuity collateral objects frozen, trust access suspended, North Star and Solstice barred from physical control, Armitage prohibited from contacting Wexford, Ethan, Lily's school, or any related party. Grace Cole's documents admitted under protective evidence protocol, and Edmund Vale ordered to remain available for deposition at 9:00 the next morning. Edmund's counsel objected to every line and lost most of them. Ethan finally stepped out of the vault at 8:52, feeling as if he had spent years underground. Clara followed him into the corridor and stopped beneath the painted moon. "I don't know how to apologize for a house," she said. Ethan leaned against the wall, exhausted. "You don't. You decide what it becomes after the wall comes down. And you?" "I call my daughter, then I decide whether to sleep." Clara looked at Grace's evidence box. "She saved us." Ethan's voice was rough. "No, she left us a chance. There's a difference." Clara nodded. "What happens tomorrow?" Ethan looked toward the stairs leading up to the auction house, where the marble rooms were full of police, lawyers, angry bidders, frightened staff, and a necklace that had refused to be sold into silence. "Tomorrow, Edmund explains the signature." His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Dana moved closer, ready to log it. Ethan opened the message. No photograph this time. No threat. Just a line of text. Grace left one original outside Wexford because she knew copies could burn. "Ask Lily about the blue music box." Ethan stopped breathing. The blue music box sat on Lily's shelf at home, the one Grace had wound for her when she was a baby, the one with the tiny ballerina who no longer turned unless Ethan tapped the lid twice. He had packed it after Grace died and never opened its base. He looked up slowly. Edmund was watching from the vault doorway, and for the first time all day, he looked genuinely afraid. Ethan closed his hand around the phone. The next room was not in Wexford and Vale. It was in his apartment. Ethan Cole did not move for several seconds after reading the message about Lily's blue music box, because the sentence had changed the map again, and this time the next room was not marble, not walnut, not guarded by trust security, or hidden behind a painted moon inside Wexford and Vale. It was a small shelf in a small apartment where his daughter kept paper stars, library books, a chipped mug full of crayons, and the last harmless-looking gift Grace had touched before the illness stole the strength from her hands. Ask Lily about the blue music box. The word sat on his phone like a key that had been waiting 8 years for him to stop being afraid of the lock. Clara Wexford stood beside him in the corridor outside the nursery vault, pale under the old yellow lamps, while Dana Rhodes documented the message. Elise Hart called Judge Reeves' clerk again, and Edmund Vale watched from the vault doorway with the unmistakable fear of a man who had believed every original was either destroyed, controlled, or dead. Ethan looked at Edmund first because instinct told him the fastest way to understand a new threat was to study the person who had most to lose from it. Edmund's lips were pressed into a thin line. His counsel whispered something urgent into his ear. For the first time all day, Edmund did not correct the room, did not polish the moment, did not lift one elegant hand and make a terrible thing sound ordinary. He simply watched Ethan's phone as if the screen itself had become evidence with a pulse. Clara noticed too. "You knew about the music box," she said. Edmund's eyes moved to her. "I know nothing about Mr. Cole's household objects." Ethan smiled without warmth. That answer came wearing gloves. Elise ended her call and stepped toward them. "Judge Reeve will permit supervised retrieval under the current preservation order, provided the location is secured first. Mr. Cole's daughter is not present during the search, and any object is opened on video with police or court liaison observing. We do not rush, we do not go alone." Ethan looked at his phone again. His whole body wanted to run to the apartment, open the box, confirm Grace had not sent him chasing ghosts, then go straight to Lily and hold her until the city forgot both their names. But the day had taught him something ugly and useful. Urgency was how dirty hands made clean people careless. "Lily stays with Principal Harris and Mrs. Donnelly until we know the apartment is secure," he said. Clara's face softened. "That is hard." "Yes. And right. Also yes." Dana was already coordinating with police. "2 officers can meet us at your building. No lights, no spectacle. We'll enter with your permission, preserve the scene, check for signs of access, then retrieve the music box under camera." Ethan shook his head. "Not my permission alone." Dana paused. "It's your apartment, and it is now connected to court, preserved evidence. I do not want Edmund arguing tomorrow that I staged an original in a room only I controlled. We need Mrs. Donnelly as building witness, police, body camera, your security log, and Judge Reeves' order referenced before the door opens." Elise nodded. "Good, very good." Edmund gave a soft laugh, finally recovering enough to be cruel. "You have become impressive at distrusting your own life." Ethan turned toward him. "You taught me." Clara stepped closer to Edmund. "While Ethan is gone, you remain here." Edmund's counsel objected instantly. Elise answered before Clara could. "Mr. Vale is under preservation directive and deposition availability order. He is not detained, but if he leaves without documenting destination and device preservation, I will notify Judge Reeve and the Attorney General liaison," Dana added, "and he will not access legacy systems, vaults, Gallery 1, or trust personnel." Edmund looked at Clara. "You will regret choosing him over your father's house." Clara's voice came low and clear. "I am choosing the record over the rot." Ethan did not wait for Edmund's answer. He called Mrs. Donnelly. She picked up immediately. "Tell me this is not another diamond emergency. It is a music box emergency." There was a pause. "The blue one?" Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "You knew? Grace asked me to keep an eye on it if anything ever happened to her. She said one day you might need to ask Lily what song still plays." Ethan's grip tightened around the phone. "And you never told me?" Mrs. Donnelly's voice softened. "Ethan, After Grace died, you could barely look at that shelf. You were surviving. She told me not to force a door before you could stand in front of it. The hallway blurred slightly. Grace had been gone 8 years and was still managing his fear with more mercy than he had given himself. Is Lily with you? Yes. Safe. Principal Harris is here too. Police officer outside. Lily is coloring the world's sternest necklace. Can I speak to her? Mrs. Donnelly put him on speaker. Lily's voice came bright but cautious. Dad? Hi, Firefly. Mrs. Donnelly says the blue music box is important. It might be. Mom said it was for when the song had to tell the truth. Ethan closed his eyes. She told you that? When I was little. I don't remember all the words. Just that if you ever asked, I should say the ballerina only turns after 2 taps and 1 wait. Ethan looked up. Dana was writing. Elise was listening carefully. Clara looked almost afraid to breathe. 2 taps and 1 wait, Ethan repeated. Anything else? She said, don't open it when you're sad. A broken laugh caught in his throat. I may have missed that part. Are you sad? Yes. Then be careful. He wiped his thumb beneath one eye before anyone could pretend not to see. I will. Dad? Yes? If Mom hid something, she wasn't lying, right? The question struck deeper than any threat that day, because children understood secrets through the people they loved. Ethan steadied his voice. No, Firefly. Sometimes hiding is what people do when truth needs to survive until someone safe can carry it. Lily was quiet. Then carry it safe. I promise. When he ended the call, Clara was looking away, giving him privacy the corridor had no room to provide. Elise said gently, we should go. The drive to Ethan's apartment took 22 minutes and felt longer than the previous 8 years. Dana rode in the front passenger seat of an unmarked security vehicle, speaking quietly into her radio. Ethan sat in the back beside Clara, not because he wanted the CEO of Wexford and Vale in his neighborhood, but because Elise had argued that Clara, as property controller of the auction house and a party to the preservation order, needed to witness the transfer between Grace's external original and Wexford's internal copies. Elise followed in a second car with the police liaison. Rain slid along the windows, turning storefront lights into trembling lines. Ethan watched the city pass and thought of all the times he had come home from low-paying jobs with his shoulders aching and his name folded small inside him, never knowing that on Lily's shelf, behind a music box ballerina with a stiff turn and a fading song, Grace had left a piece of him untouched. Clara broke the silence first. Did Grace know me? Ethan did not answer immediately. She knew of you. That is careful. It is accurate. Clara looked down at her hands. Did she hate my family? Ethan thought about it. Grace had hated lies, but she had not been lazy with blame. She could hold a system responsible without making every person inside it the same kind of guilty. She hated what your father did. She did not hate children who inherited locked rooms. Clara swallowed. I was not a child when your life was ruined. No, but you were not the architect. I benefited from the building. Ethan looked out at the rain. Yes, she flinched slightly, but he respected her enough not to soften it. After a while, she said, thank you for not lying. Do not thank me for making it hurt. That becomes its own kind of vanity. Clara turned toward him with the faintest, strangest smile. Grace said things like that, didn't she? Ethan's chest tightened. Often. They reached his building at 9:21 p.m. It looked smaller with police nearby, its brick damp from rain, its lobby light flickering, its mailboxes dented, its front steps cracked in a way Ethan had stopped seeing because home trained you to ignore what you could not afford to fix. Mrs. Donnelly waited just inside the lobby in her purple coat, arms folded, face set in the expression of a woman prepared to fight billionaires with soup ladles if required. Principal Harris stood beside her on video call through an officer's phone, so Lily could remain at school and still hear when appropriate. Ethan greeted Mrs. Donnelly, and she hugged him so hard his cracked briefcase hit the wall. You look terrible, she said. Good to see you too. I told Grace you would wait too long. His throat closed. Tonight was as fast as I could. Her face softened, then hardened when she saw Clara. And you are? Clara stepped forward without CEO posture. Clara Wexford. My family caused Mr. Cole harm. I am here as witness. not decoration. Mrs. Donnelly studied her. Good. Decorations don't breathe in this building. Mold problem. Clara blinked. Ethan almost smiled. Dana cleared the apartment first with 2 officers. No forced entry. No open drawers. No obvious disturbance. That should have comforted Ethan, but the day had taught him that absence of damage did not mean absence of hands. Grace had hidden the truth where sentiment made it invisible. Others might have searched for files, drives, legal folders. They might never have looked inside a child's music box because men like Edmund rarely understood the evidentiary value of love. Under body camera, they entered. The apartment looked almost painfully ordinary after Wexford's marble and vaults. The couch folded, Lily's schoolbooks stacked neatly, 2 mugs in the sink, a raincoat hanging from a chair, the small shelf by the window, where the blue music box sat between a jar of buttons and a framed photo of Grace holding newborn Lily. Clara stopped at the threshold, as if crossing into the apartment required permission from more than Ethan. "May I?" she asked. He nodded. She entered quietly, and he appreciated that she did not look around with pity. Pity priced a room from the outside. Clara simply saw it. Dana set up a camera. Elise placed evidence bags on the table. The police liaison read the order into the record. Mrs. Donnelly stood near the door like an extra lock. Ethan approached the shelf and picked up the music box with both hands. It was painted blue with tiny silver stars, worn at the corners, the lid slightly warped. Grace had bought it at a flea market when Lily was 6 months old and declared that every child deserved at least one object that believed in magic even if rent did not. Ethan placed it on the kitchen table beneath the camera. Lily said 2 taps and 1 wait, he said. Dana nodded. Proceed when ready. Ethan tapped the lid twice. Then he waited. Nothing happened for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then something inside clicked, not loudly, just enough for the room to hear the past release 1 tooth of its mechanism. The ballerina inside did not rise. Instead, the bottom panel loosened. Mrs. Donnelly whispered, "Oh, Grace." Ethan carefully turned the box over. A false bottom slid open. Inside was a thin oilskin packet wrapped in blue thread, a small brass key, and a folded note addressed in Grace's handwriting, "For Ethan first. For Lily when she is old enough to know truth is not the same as danger." Ethan's hand trembled once. He steadied it before Edmund's world could reach into his body from miles away. Elise said softly, "Take your time." "No," Ethan replied, voice rough. "Carefully is not slowly. Carefully is correctly." He cut the thread under camera and opened the first note. Grace's handwriting was smaller than he remembered from before she got sick, but steady. "Ethan, if this is open, then either they used your name again, or our daughter was brought too close to the old lie. I am sorry I could not tell you everything while I was alive. You were holding Lily and trying to keep the lights on, and I knew if I gave you the whole room before you had doors, you would throw yourself against men who wanted you desperate. So I built copies. The original is here, because Henry never searched where a child slept. Edmund will say, you signed. You did not. Henry ordered the signature built from your settlement exemplar. Edmund supervised. Voss knew parts, not paper. The guarantee is not about money alone. It is about moving compromised objects into friendly hands before any new CEO can open the old files. Clara may be innocent of the design, but she will have to choose whether innocence is enough. Trust her, only after she risks something she cannot buy back. I love you. Tell Lily the song was always hers." Ethan stopped reading. Not because the letter ended. It did not. Because the words had put Grace in the kitchen so suddenly that he could almost hear the tired breath she used to take between sentences near the end. Clara stood perfectly still, tears bright but unshed. Mrs. Donnelly wept openly and did not care who saw. Elise's face softened into respect. Dana documented the note without intruding on it. Ethan forced himself to continue. Beneath the letter was the original refused certificate, clean, unsigned, with the risk language linking Marceline to Aurelian, Vesper, Orlov, and the continuity pool. Attached to it was a transparent overlay sheet bearing tracing marks of Ethan's settlement signature, pressure notes, ink tests, and initials, E.V. Approved, H.W. reviewed. There was also a small digital recorder, old but intact, and the brass key. Elise leaned in. The recorder first? Ethan looked at the note. Grace had written at the bottom, "Play only on record." He nodded. Dana connected the recorder to a speaker under camera. The room filled with static, then voices. Henry Wexford first, older, confident, unmistakably used to rooms bending around him. "Cole will not sign it. He has too much pride." Edmund Vale answered, younger but already smooth. "Pride is not the lever. The child is." Ethan's vision narrowed. Clara covered her mouth. The recording continued. Henry said, "Do not threaten the child directly. We are not thugs." Edmund replied, "Of course not. We adjust the weather, insurance instability, employment questions, hospital billing, Grace's access review. He will sign what keeps his home intact." Grace's voice entered then, distant, hidden, but clear enough to slice through 8 years. "And if he refuses?" Silence on the tape. Then Henry, cold now. "Then his name signs without him." Clara made a sound as if something had broken inside her. Edmund's recorded voice said, "That creates exposure." Henry replied, "Only if Grace keeps breathing long enough to prove it." Mrs. Donnelly whispered, "Dear God." Ethan did not move. He could not afford to move. If he moved, the father in him, the widower in him, the man who had slept on a couch under a stolen name for 8 years, might tear the room apart. So he became the negotiator, one breath to name the room, kitchen, witness, original evidence, Grace speaking from the past, Lily safe, Clara hearing her father. One breath to name the fear, "This will destroy me before it clears me." One breath to choose the next sentence. "Copy the recording 3 times, he said. His voice sounded unlike him, one for court, one for independent counsel, one for police, original sealed. Elise nodded immediately. Clara sat down at the kitchen chair, because this time she could not remain standing. "He knew Grace was sick," she whispered. Ethan looked at her. "Yes, he said that. Yes." Clara pressed both hands against her face and then lowered them, not hiding. "I am so sorry." This time Ethan did not reject it. He could not accept it fully either, then risk something you cannot buy back. She looked up at him, understanding Grace's line. "What?" "Your father's public legacy, not Edmund's, not Oliver's, not some trust structure. Henry Wexford's name." Clara closed her eyes. When she opened them, the Wexford steel was there, but it had changed ownership. "Yes." Elise's phone rang before anyone could speak further. She answered, listened, and her expression tightened. "Judge Reeve wants us back on secure conference. North Star has renewed its demand and claims Wexford removed responsive material off-site to fabricate evidence." Dana almost laughed. "We are literally recording this under court order," Elise said. "They are moving before the original reaches the record." Ethan looked at the music box. "Then we put the original on the record now." Clara stood. "From here?" "From here." "In your kitchen?" Ethan looked around at the cracked table, Lily's drawings, Grace's photo, the blue music box open like a small, honest wound. "This kitchen has more truth in it than your boardroom did." Clara did not argue. They set up the secure conference from Ethan's table. Judge Reeve appeared on Elise's laptop, less amused than before. Marianne Frost appeared for North Star, Julian for Solstice, Edmund and counsel from Wexford's archive corridor, Beatrice from the boardroom, Priya from conservation, and the Attorney General liaison from her office. When Edmund saw Ethan's kitchen behind him, his face changed in a way only Ethan seemed to catch. Not fear exactly. Recognition. He had underestimated the apartment. That was the one room he had never priced correctly. Elise presented the chain. Anonymous message. Court. Authorized retrieval. Police presence. Building witness. Body camera. Music box mechanism opened under video. Grace Cole's original note. Refused certificate. Tracing overlay. Digital recording. Marianne objected to authenticity. Judge Reeve said, "Expected. Overruled for preservation purposes." Julian demanded inspection of the originals. Judge Reeve said, "You will receive copies through counsel after forensic protocol." Edmund's counsel argued privilege. Judge Reeve looked tired. Privilege does not cover a plan to forge a signature and leverage a child's insurance. Try again tomorrow if you must, but bring better shoes for that swamp." Ethan almost smiled, but the recording had emptied him. Clara leaned toward the laptop. "Your Honor, I need to make a statement as CEO of Wexford and Vale." Elise glanced at her. Ethan watched closely. This was the risk Grace had demanded. Clara's voice shook once, then steadied. "Based on evidence recovered tonight, Wexford and Vale will formally suspend all references to Henry Wexford's Legacy Certification Authority, remove his name from active guarantee materials pending investigation, waive any claim that Ethan Cole's disputed certificate was valid, and cooperate with review of all continuity collateral objects. We will not defend my father's reputation against the record." The kitchen went silent. In the small laptop boxes, faces shifted. Beatrice stunned, Priya solemn, Julian calculating, Marianne alarmed, Edmund finally furious. Ethan looked at Clara and saw, for the first time, not absolution, not redemption, but cost. Her father's name was the pillar beneath the house. She had just kicked it in front of everyone. Judge Reeve nodded once. Statement noted. Edmund leaned toward his camera. "Clara, you have no idea what you have done." Clara looked back at him. "I know exactly what I have stopped doing." Edmund's eyes moved to Ethan. "And you think this gives you back 8 years?" Ethan answered before grief could. "No, it gives my daughter a record that says her father told the truth." Edmund smiled with sudden cruelty. "Records do not raise children." Mrs. Donnelly, who had been silent near the stove, stepped into view before anyone could stop her. "Neither do cowards in nice suits." Judge Reeve blinked. "Identify yourself." Mrs. Donnelly, neighbor, soup provider, witness, and apparently the only person here with manners. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Clara looked down to hide something like a smile. Judge Reeve cleared his throat. "Noted, Mrs. Donnelly. Please remain available as witness." "I've been available for 8 years, she snapped. "It's about time the court caught up." The hearing continued. Judge Reeve expanded protection over Lily, ordered immediate forensic preservation of the music box originals, prohibited North Star or Solstice from asserting delivery based on the disputed certificate until authenticity review, and ordered Edmund Vale to produce the trust instrument, continuity pool ledgers, and all communications tied to Henry Wexford's certification authority by 9:00 a.m. The Attorney General liaison requested copies of the recording. Elise promised delivery through secure channel. Dana arranged transport of the originals to a court-approved evidence locker. Ethan watched each step, because watching was how he kept from collapsing. At 10:38 p.m., Lily came home under police escort with Principal Harris and Mrs. Donnelly, because Judge Reeve decided, after confirming the apartment was secured, that keeping a child in a school office past bedtime was no longer protective if her father was home. Lily entered wearing her blue sweatshirt, clutching her drawing, and Mr. Rabbit and Ethan knelt before she reached him. She ran into his arms so hard he nearly fell backward. He held her and finally let the day break 1 inch. Not all of it. Not enough to drown. Just 1 inch. "You found Mom's song?" she whispered into his shoulder. "Yes." "Was it true?" He closed his eyes. "Yes." "Did it hurt?" "Yes." She pulled back and looked at him with Grace's eyes. "But truth can hurt without being mean." He laughed once, broken and proud. "Who taught you that?" "Mom, maybe, or you, I don't remember." Clara stood near the window, watching with an expression Ethan could not name. Lily noticed her. "Are you the diamond lady?" Clara startled, then nodded. "Yes, I'm Clara." Lily studied her seriously. "Did you make the diamonds mean?" Clara swallowed. "No, but I lived in the house where people did." Lily considered that. "Are you fixing the house?" Clara looked at Ethan, then back at Lily. "I'm trying." Lily nodded as if that was the most any adult could honestly promise. "Then don't let fear sit in the big chair." Clara blinked hard. "I won't." After Lily was settled with Mrs. Donnelly in the bedroom, the apartment quieted again. Evidence had left under seal. Police remained nearby. Clara prepared to return to Wexford with Elise and Dana. Ethan stood by the shelf where the music box had sat for years, now open and empty except for its fading ballerina. Clara approached slowly, Grace said trust me only after I risked something I couldn't buy back. She did. Was it enough? Ethan looked at her. It was a start. She nodded, accepting the smaller room instead of demanding forgiveness. Tomorrow Edmund produces the trust instrument. Or tries not to. What will he do? Ethan looked toward Lily's closed bedroom door. He will attack the chain, attack Grace, attack me, attack you. And if none of that works, he will offer someone a private exit. Clara's face hardened. And what do we do? Ethan picked up the music box lid and closed it gently. The old melody began at last, faint and uneven, but still there. We make sure the only exit left is the truth. At 11:17 p.m., after Clara left, after Mrs. Donnelly fell asleep in the chair by Lily's room, after Ethan sat alone at the kitchen table with Grace's empty packet and a cup of soup gone cold, his phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. He stared at it for a long moment before opening the message. This time there was no hint, no threat, no photograph, no warning about a room, just an attachment, a scanned page from the original Henry Wexford Trust instrument. One clause was highlighted. In the event of certification fraud, all continuity assets revert to the original harmed parties or their lawful heirs. Beneath it, one typed note appeared. Grace found the punishment clause. Edmund hid it because it does not just clear you. It gives Lily standing. Ethan read the sentence 3 times. Then he looked toward his daughter's bedroom. The Aurelian was not only evidence. The forged signature was not only a lie. If Grace was right, then the house that used Lily as leverage had accidentally made her the one person with the legal key to bring it down. By 6:12 the next morning, Ethan Cole was awake at the kitchen table even though he had never truly slept, sitting in the gray light with a cup of untouched coffee, Grace's blue music box closed beside him, and Lily curled on the couch under his old blanket because she had insisted that if he had slept there for years to protect her room, then one morning she could sleep there to protect his. Mrs. Donnelly snored softly in the armchair near the door, with a wooden spoon in her hand like a weapon she had forgotten to put down. Outside, rain had washed the city clean enough to lie about it. Ethan watched the first buses move below the window and read the highlighted clause again on the scanned page from the Henry Wexford Trust instrument. In the event of certification fraud, all continuity assets revert to the original harmed parties or their lawful heirs. The words should have felt like victory. They did not. They felt like someone had placed a crown made of knives on his daughter's pillow. Lily had standing. That was what the anonymous message had said. Not Clara. Not the board, not even Ethan alone. Lily, because the forged certificate had used Ethan's name while Grace's evidence proved the harm extended through the family. A trust built to move compromised jewels into friendly hands had hidden its own punishment clause so deeply that Edmund Vale had believed it would never matter. But Grace had found it. Grace had found the hinge in the law the way Ethan found the hinge in the necklace. He looked toward Lily, whose face was relaxed in sleep, one hand wrapped around her stuffed rabbit, and felt the old terror rise. Men had already tried to use her school, her schedule, her allergies, her safety, her name. Now the law itself could make her powerful, and power was another form of exposure if adults handled it badly. At 6:24, Lily opened one eye. Are you thinking too loud? Ethan smiled faintly. Probably. Is it about the punishment clause? He blinked. Who told you that phrase? You said it in your sleep. Mrs. Donnelly stirred. He also said hinge language and no private escrow, like a haunted lawyer. Ethan rubbed his face. I'm not a lawyer. Lily sat up, hair wild, rabbit pressed to her chest. But you negotiate rooms. That's different. Mom said different does not mean smaller. Mrs. Donnelly opened one eye. The child is awake and terrifying. Feed her. Ethan made toast because ordinary motion was sometimes the only bridge between a broken night and whatever came next. Lily ate at the table while he explained only what she needed to know. Grace had hidden proof. The proof helped show that people had used his name without permission, and some grown-ups would meet with a judge to decide how to protect the truth. He did not say collateral. He did not say trust instrument. He did not say legal standing. Children deserved truth, but they did not deserve the full weight of adult machinery before breakfast. Lily listened carefully, then asked, "Do they want to give me the shiny necklace?" Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. "Mrs." Donnelly made a sound that might have been a laugh. "No," Ethan said quickly. "No one is giving you the shiny necklace." Lily looked relieved. "Good. It sounds like a lot of dusting." He smiled despite everything. "It does. Then what happens?" He knelt beside her chair. "Today, I'm going to make sure no one uses your name, my name, or Mom's name as a key without permission. And if the law says our family has power in this, I will ask the judge to put that power in a safe place until you are old enough to decide what it means." Lily studied him. "So fear doesn't sit in the big chair?" "Exactly." She nodded. "Then I approve." Mrs. Donnelly lifted her mug. "The court will be relieved." At 8:00, Principal Harris arrived with a school counselor, not because Lily had to go back to school immediately, but because everyone agreed she deserved a normal adult who knew how to talk about scary days without turning them into secrets. Dana Rhodes stationed security outside the building through police coordination, not Wexford authority. Elise Hart arrived at 8:23 with 2 sealed evidence cases and the look of someone who had already fought 3 attorneys before breakfast and found all of them underprepared. Clara Wexford arrived 5 minutes later, dressed in a dark suit instead of white, her hair pulled back, no jewelry except a plain watch. She did not enter until Ethan opened the door himself. "Good morning," she said softly. Lily looked up from the table. "Are you still fixing the house?" Clara swallowed. "Yes. Did you let fear sit in the big chair?" Clara looked at Ethan, then back at Lily. "Almost, but not yet." Lily considered that acceptable and returned to her toast. Clara placed a folder on the table. "Before the hearing, I want you to see this." Ethan opened it. Inside was a draft public statement on Wexford and Vale letterhead. Wexford and Vale acknowledges credible evidence that founder Henry Wexford and legacy counsel Edmund Vale participated in improper certification practices, undisclosed continuity collateral structures, and concealment of condition-related information involving multiple legacy objects. Wexford and Vale withdraws any reliance on disputed documents bearing Ethan Cole's signature, apologizes to Mr. Cole and the late Grace Cole, and will cooperate fully with independent investigation and restitution. Ethan read it twice. The words looked impossible. Not enough to repair years, not enough to bring Grace back, not enough to erase Lily's fear, but impossible all the same. "Your board approved this?" Clara's mouth tightened. "Not yet." "Then why show me?" "Because I intend to read it whether they approve or not." Elise looked at her. "That will likely trigger resignations, litigation, lender panic, and possibly your removal." Clara nodded. "Yes." Ethan looked at Grace's line in his memory. "Trust her only after she risks something she cannot buy back." "Why?" Clara's eyes moved to the music box. "Because last night, I heard my father say your wife might not live long enough to prove the truth. If I protect his name after hearing that, then his house still owns me." No one spoke. Lily looked between the adults, sensing weight even without the details. "My mom was brave," she said. Clara turned to her. "Yes, very." "Then don't say sorry like it's a tiny broom." Clara blinked. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, because Grace had apparently divided herself into one dead woman and one small child with perfect aim. Clara nodded slowly. "I won't." The emergency hearing began at 9:00 a.m., not in Wexford's boardroom this time, but in a sealed courtroom where no cameras were allowed, no bidders could whisper from velvet chairs, and no one could pretend the room existed for beauty. Judge Reeves sat at the bench with the expression of a man who had read enough overnight filings to develop personal resentment toward adjectives. Ethan sat beside Elise, not as counsel, not as claimant yet, but as fact witness, disputed signatory, and father. Clara sat at the Wexford table with Beatrice Lang and outside counsel. Edmund Vale sat across the aisle in a dark suit, his face smoothed back into courtesy, though the courtesy now looked like paint over a wall that had cracked. Marianne Frost represented North Star. Julian Armand represented Solstice. A trust attorney represented what remained of Henry Wexford's instruments. Priya Nair sat behind Elise with conservation reports stacked beside her. Dana Rhodes sat near the evidence table. Lily was not present. That was Ethan's first victory of the day. Her name appeared only under protective seal, and every adult in the room had been warned by Judge Reeve that using a child as a litigation tactic would turn the court's patience into a historical artifact. Elise began with the original music box evidence, the recording, the tracing overlay, the unsigned certificate, Grace's letter, and the continuity collateral list. North Star objected to authenticity, timing, standing, chain, relevance, tone, and almost the weather. Judge Reeve overruled most of it and preserved the rest for later. Then Edmund's deposition began in open sealed session. Elise did not attack him first. That was why Ethan respected her. She built the hallway. Mr. Vale, did your office maintain the Marceline legacy file? Yes, under trust authority. Did your office transmit materials to Solstice Guarantee Partners? Certain materials, yes. Did those materials include the certificate bearing Ethan Cole's signature? I believe so. Did you personally witness Mr. Cole sign that certificate? No. Did Henry Wexford? Edmund paused. I cannot speak to every event witnessed by Mr. Wexford. Ethan leaned slightly toward Elise and whispered, He knows the no is safer than the maybe. Elise nodded almost imperceptibly. Did anyone witness Mr. Cole sign? Edmund's jaw tightened. I do not recall. Elise placed the audio transcript on the evidence screen. Henry Wexford's words appeared in black letters. Then his name signs without him. The room absorbed them differently in daylight. At night, they had been horror. In court, they were architecture. Elise asked, Does this refresh your recollection? Edmund said, The recording has not been authenticated. Judge Reeve looked over his glasses. That was not the question. Edmund's counsel stood. Judge Reeve raised one hand. Sit unless you have a legal objection, not an emotional rescue rope. The counsel sat. Edmund looked at the transcript, and Ethan saw the exact moment the older man understood that silence no longer protected him. It only made him look like a man measuring prison doors. I did not physically forge Ethan Cole's signature, Edmund said. Elise pounced without raising her voice. Who did? Edmund's mouth closed. Clara looked down, hands clasped tightly. Beatrice held her breath. Julian Armand suddenly became interested in his notes. Marianne Frost watched Edmund with an expression that suggested North Star was already preparing to call him independent. Edmund finally said, A document technician prepared the certificate based on existing exemplars. Elise asked, At whose direction? Henry Wexford's. With your supervision? Silence. Mr. Vale? Edmund's face hardened. With my administrative oversight. Ethan closed his eyes once. There it was. Administrative oversight. The polite phrase that had carried 8 stolen years. Elise continued, Did you understand Mr. Cole had refused to sign? Yes. Did you understand the certificate would be used to support continuity collateral structures? Yes. Did you understand those structures could move compromised assets into private hands if challenged? That is an unfair characterization. Did you understand? Edmund looked toward Clara, not Ethan. I understood that the house required survival. Clara flinched as if struck, then straightened. Elise walked him through the rest. Gerald Voss, Oliver Banks, the Aurelian adjustment, the trust security, the Armitage-linked school calls, the emergency demand, the heat device, the North Star fallback purchaser clause, Solstice's collateral rights, the nursery vault, the music box original. Edmund denied ordering contact with Lily's school. He denied authorizing the heat device. He denied knowing the anonymous messages, but the structure around him kept shrinking. Armitage records showed a contractor hired by a trust-linked entity to conduct family pressure mapping around Ethan Cole. The phrase made Judge Reeve stop the hearing for 90 seconds because even he seemed to need time to be angry correctly. Dana's logs showed the heat device was placed by maintenance credentials issued through legacy operations. Solstice records showed North Star was not merely a fallback purchaser, but a related entity with shared beneficial ownership hidden behind 3 layers of cultural holding companies. The Attorney General's liaison requested expanded investigative authority before lunch. North Star began distancing itself from Solstice. Solstice began distancing itself from the Trust. The Trust began distancing itself from Edmund. Edmund began distancing himself from Henry Wexford, but the recording and Grace's documents tied them together with ink, voice, and motive. Near noon, Clara asked to speak. Her counsel hesitated. Beatrice whispered something urgent. Clara stood anyway. "Your Honor," she said, "Wexford and Vale withdraws reliance on all disputed continuity certificates associated with Ethan Cole and any similarly situated specialists pending forensic review. We consent to court supervision over the Aurelian Necklace and related continuity collateral objects. We will not seek delivery, sale, transfer, escrow, or private settlement of Lot 1 outside this court's process. We will establish an independently administered restitution and conservation fund using house reserves, insurance recoveries if available, and proceeds from non-disputed assets, and I will make a public statement naming Henry Wexford's role." The courtroom went very still. Beatrice whispered, "Clara." Clara did not sit. Judge Reeve looked at her carefully. "Miss Wexford, you understand that statement may create severe consequences for your company and for you personally." "Yes. You are not required to make a public statement today." "I know. Then why?" Clara turned slightly, not toward the cameras because there were none, not toward the board, not even toward Ethan first, but toward the evidence table where Grace's music box sat in a sealed clear case, because Henry Wexford built a house where truth was treated as a threat to value. I inherited that house. I benefited from that house. I did not design every hidden room, but last night I opened one. Today I choose not to close it. Ethan looked at Grace's music box and felt something inside him loosen, not forgiveness, not yet, but the end of one kind of waiting. Judge Reeve nodded. Statement noted. This court will not instruct a party how to confess, but it will remember who chose preservation over concealment. Then came the question of Lily. It was the sharpest room of the day because everyone understood that the punishment clause gave Ethan's family leverage over continuity assets, but only Ethan seemed determined not to let that leverage become another way of placing weight on a child. Elise presented his proposal. Lily's potential rights would be placed into a protected court. Supervised trust administered by an independent guardian ad litem, with Ethan waiving any personal control over the assets, except for restitution tied directly to documented harm, education, security, and family safety. Disputed objects would not become private possessions, but would be preserved, restored, and, where appropriate, returned to rightful heirs, museums, or public trusts after full review. Ethan's name would be formally cleared. Grace's contribution would be entered into the record, and any financial recovery connected to Lily would be shielded from publicity and adult exploitation. North Star objected that Ethan could not both assert standing and refuse the economic consequences of standing. Ethan asked to answer. Judge Reeve allowed it. He stood slowly. The courtroom blurred for a moment, not from fear, but from the strange exhaustion of finally speaking in a room that had to listen. 8 years ago, Ethan said, I thought the choice was my name or my family. Edmund Vale and Henry Wexford made sure the room looked that way. My wife knew better. Grace understood there was always a third choice, but she also knew I was too tired and too afraid to see it, so she hid records where our daughter's childhood could protect them until truth had somewhere safer to stand. Now this clause says my daughter may have power over assets built from the fraud that hurt us. I will not let the people who used her as pressure turn her into a prize. Lily is not a claimant strategy. She is a child. If the law gives her standing, then the law can also give her protection from adults who confuse winning with ownership. Judge Reeve was silent for a long moment. Then he said, That may be the first sensible thing anyone has said about wealth in this courtroom today. Mrs. Donnelly, watching from a private video room with Lily safely off camera, later claimed the judge had looked directly at her when saying it, though no one could prove that. Bidva, 45 PW. The orders were entered. The Aurelian necklace would remain under court seal and independent conservation. All continuity collateral objects named in Grace's records were frozen. North Star's delivery demand was denied. Solstice's collateral enforcement was stayed pending fraud review. Armitage Risk was barred from contact with Ethan. Lily, their school, caregivers, or residents. Edmund Vale's passport was surrendered after the Attorney General's office produced enough evidence of flight risk to make his counsel stop using the word cooperation. Oliver Banks entered a cooperation agreement. Gerald Voss agreed to testify. Beatrice Lang resigned as board chair but remained as a cooperating witness, and Clara Wexford was ordered to produce the full legacy archive, including Henry Wexford's private certification authority files. When Edmund stood to leave under supervision, he paused beside Ethan. "Do you feel restored?" he asked quietly. Ethan looked at him. This man who had worn power like a second skin for longer than Lily had been alive, and realized the answer was no longer complicated. "No." Edmund's mouth curved. "Then what did you win?" Ethan looked through the courtroom window where afternoon light had finally broken through the rain. "A record my daughter can read, without wondering whether her father lied." Edmund's smile faded. Ethan continued, "And a room where you had to answer. That was enough." 6 weeks later, the newspapers stopped calling it a jewelry scandal and began calling it the Wexford continuity fraud, which was less beautiful and more accurate. Clara's public statement aired on every major financial and art news channel. She named Henry Wexford. She named Edmund Vale. She named the structures without hiding behind legacy complexity. The board tried to remove her and failed after donors, insurers, and several museums publicly backed the preservation process. Some collectors threatened lawsuits because truth had made their holdings less comfortable. Others quietly returned pieces for review. The Aurelian necklace did not go back to auction. Priya Nair led the conservation effort, removed the compromised insert, documented the Marceline component, and placed the necklace in a court-supervised exhibition titled The Cost of Silence, where visitors saw not only diamonds but condition reports, repair sketches, forged certificates, Grace Cole's research notes, and a small blue music box displayed under glass beside the words that changed the case, "Then his name signs without him." Ethan almost refused to let the music box be shown, but Lily decided, after much serious thought and one discussion about dusting, that her mother's song could help other people understand why beautiful things should not be allowed to lie. Lily's name never appeared publicly. The protected trust paid for her education, therapy, and safety without turning her into a headline. Ethan accepted restitution enough to move them out of the apartment with the bad radiator and into a modest 2-bedroom place where Lily had a desk by the window. Mrs. Donnelly had a standing invitation to dinner, and Ethan slept in an actual bed so awkwardly for the first month that Lily told him he needed practice being comfortable. His professional name was formally cleared. 3 law firms, 2 museums, and 1 international auction house offered him consulting contracts large enough to change his life overnight. He accepted none immediately. Instead, he opened a small practice called Clean Room Negotiation, helping museums, families, insurers, and workers resolve disputes before silence became architecture. His first paid case was for a young catalog intern who had been blamed for a mislabeled bracelet she had, in fact, tried to correct. Ethan made sure she received an apology before the settlement number was discussed. Clara Wexford remained CEO, though no longer untouchable. That was better. Untouchable people rarely stayed honest. She sold 1 private Wexford property to fund restitution and renamed the nursery vault the Grace Cole Research Room, but only after asking Ethan and Lily. Lily approved because nursery vault sounds like a place where dolls file taxes. Clara laughed for the first time in Ethan's presence without it sounding borrowed. Edmund Vale was indicted on fraud, obstruction, witness intimidation, and conspiracy charges tied to multiple continuity assets. He never admitted guilt publicly, but during deposition, when asked why he had kept the punishment clause hidden, he said, "Because Henry believed no harmed party would ever become strong enough to use it." Ethan kept a copy of that line in his office, not as revenge, but as a reminder that systems built on fear often fail because they underestimate who grief teaches to read. 1 year after the failed auction, Wexford and Vale held a public restitution ceremony, not glamorous, not televised like a sale, but full of people who had once been kept in separate rooms: heirs, specialists, conservators, museum staff, former assistants, researchers, and families whose names had appeared only in footnotes until Grace's files gave them doors. Ethan stood in the back with Lily, who wore a blue dress and carried Mr. Rabbit in a tote bag because she was older now but not that much older. Clara approached them before speaking. "I'm nervous," she admitted. Lily looked up at her. "Is fear in the big chair?" Clara shook her head. "Not today." "Then you're allowed." Clara looked at Ethan. "She negotiates harder than you. She has better counsel." When Clara took the podium, she did not speak like an auctioneer. She spoke like a person returning keys. Ethan listened until she said Grace's name, then looked down because some grief deserved privacy even inside justice. Lily slipped her hand into his. "Mom helped save the shiny necklace," she whispered. Ethan squeezed her hand. "She helped save more than that." "Did you?" He looked at the room. Clara risking truth. Priya standing beside restored evidence. The young intern smiling near the aisle. Mrs. Donnelly pretending not to cry. And the Aurelian necklace displayed behind glass. No longer merchandise. No longer collateral. Simply a beautiful object finally relieved of carrying a lie. "I helped open the room," he said. Lily nodded. "That counts." That evening, after the ceremony, Ethan and Lily walked home under a sky finally clear enough to show a few stubborn stars. In their new apartment, the copy of Grace's letter rested in a frame above Ethan's desk. Not the whole thing, only one line: "Do not choose their choices." Lily wound the replica music box Clara had commissioned for her, because the original belonged to the public record now. The tiny ballerina turned unevenly, then found her rhythm. Ethan stood in the doorway and watched his daughter dance badly across the living room with Mr. Rabbit held high like a ballroom partner. For the first time in 8 years, his name felt neither borrowed nor buried. It felt ordinary. It felt his. Lily stopped mid-spin and looked at him. "Dad?" "Yes, Firefly? Did you come home with your name?" Ethan smiled, and this time it did not hurt first. "Yes." She tilted her head. "And Mom's?" He looked at Grace's letter, the blue music box, the little girl who had inherited courage without being asked to pay for it, and the life that waited beyond scandal, beyond marble rooms, beyond the auction that never happened because one forgotten single father saw a hinge no one else wanted to see. "Yes," he said softly. "With Mom's too. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments. Did Ethan make the right choice by refusing to use Lily's legal standing for personal revenge, or should he have taken everything the Wexford Trust owed his family? And do you think Clara deserved a second chance after exposing her own father's legacy? If you want more emotional stories about single fathers, hidden truth, powerful families, and justice that comes from courage instead of money, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who believes the truth can survive even when powerful people try to bury it.